Okay, welcome back to the tutorial. This is part 2. We're going to do some basic work on converting animations, okay, animated GIFs, and then in part 3, in the next part, we'll do a little bit of troubleshooting. So this is going to be a pretty smooth representation of the workflow as it goes without any problems. So a couple things that I have loaded up here. I've got my workflow sheet, handy reminder in case I forget something. I have a Notepad which has my TXI file. Again, the TXI file is just a text file with a TXI extension which has the same name as the texture that it is controlling. Okay, and while we can control animation elements for an emitter through the emitter's settings, we have to use a TXI file to do that for just a regular texture. Also have 3D Studio Max loaded up here, Vel Tools and Neverwinter Max Plus. You can use regular Neverwinter Max if you like. I don't think you need the Vel Tools for any of this stuff, but it's super handy no matter what. And we, of course, have Infinity Explorer, which is where we're going to start out. And then here's the UI of Glueit. Okay, this is how we're actually going to assemble those sprites into a sprite sheet. And of course GIMP. Okay, and that rounds it out. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So first we're going to be in Infinity Explorer here. Don't mind these windows, they're from GIMP and they come up whenever I minimize everything and then click on something else, so ignore these for right now. Infinity Explorer is a great deal like Neverwinter Explorer on the Vault. So the one by, I think, Zolagato or Akeos, any of those, it works very similar. There's a tree list here on the left, and it allows you to view assets. So you can view movies, or you can view graphics, or animations in this case. And so what we're going to do is, I've already gone through here and kind of found the animations. It takes a little time, and you can, of course, some of these things are a little familiar. So we're going to go into graphics. I think is it? No, it's BAM. Okay, so we open that up, and as you can see, there's a bunch of BIF files here, which you're probably pretty familiar with. Okay, and then we're going to go down to spells. Okay. And what these are the animations for various spells. Okay, look at that. Pretty stuff. Good stuff. Okay. And so the thing about that is, just one tip when using Infinity Explorer is when you click on a given animation or image, notice how it says animations here, frames here. Okay, everybody understands what the frames are about. Okay. But animations, sometimes there's more than one animation, or I should say, sometimes the animation has been rendered from more than one angle. So, if you view this with animation 1, it's viewed from this angle, and then from if you click on animation 2, when you go through, it's actually viewed from a different angle there. So that's real important. If you have 4 different animations here, each one of them is different. So if you want to import those into Neverwinter Nights, just remember you can conceivably export up to all 4 as GIF files. Okay, so there's just a ton of animations. Obviously, this is Planescape Torment. So okay, we're gonna go down here to one that I already had played around with. Yeah, this was the guy I started out on. So this only has one animation. It's got 24 frames. That's kind of a nice number. Let's take a look at it real quick. Pretty. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and right click here. We're going to export it. We are going to export it as an animated GIF. That's super important. Okay. And I've already exported a copy of it, but I'll do it anyway. Save. Okay. And it'll overwrite my previous version. Now I'm going to go ahead and minimize the Infinity Explorer. Okay. So now we've used Infinity Explorer. We've exported our animated GIF. We're now going to drag and drop this into GIMP. Okay, so let's come into our override directory where I like to dump everything. This is the file that we exported there. And I'm going to load up, or bring up the GIMP window, and I'm just going to drag it right on there. And GIMP loads it up real nicely. And I'm going to drag these annoying windows back. And then I'm going to preview the animation, just to get an idea of what it's going to look like. So I believe Go to filters, go down to animation, and then playback. Okay, and it's going to bring up this cool little window, which is the animation. So we're viewing it right now with all the layers superimposed on top of each other, and that's not really what it looks like when it plays. This is what it will look like when it plays. Okay, so that makes sense. That's just what it looked like in Infinity Explorer. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to run those scripts that I was talking about. I showed you how to install them in the last lesson, or last bit of the tutorial. Come to Filters, Script Foo, and Refresh Scripts. You won't need to do this, but if for some reason you added them while I was talking, that's what you'll need to do to load them up. And then go to Tools, or actually, I always forget. There we go, all layers to image size. Now, why is that important? If you click here on the Layers tab, it'll show you that this animation is in fact composed of individual frames, and those frames are each layers. And what we see here is those layers are stacked one on top of another. And so this isn't really truly what the animation looks like. It's just all these frames laid on top of each other, just like it was an onion skin or a vellum pad of parchment that an animator used to do old-fashioned animation. Okay. And so, because this is digital, these sheets aren't exactly the same size. In fact, the sheets are just as big as they need to be. That's the actual size of this image. So if I were to save off this frame individually, the image would only be that big. This yellow dashed line shows you how big the resolution of that actual frame is. Okay? We need to standardize this so that each one of these frames has the exact same resolution. We do that with our first script here, which is all layers to image size. Okay, now again, notice the size here. Okay, see how it gets a little bit bigger in the next animation. We need them all to be uniform. So we're just going to go here, all layers to image size, and bam, you can see right there, every single one of them is the same size. This is mucho helpful. Okay. Now, what we have to do, we'll only have to do this once, but it's real important to make sure that you go through this step, is we're going to just have any frame clicked, and we're just going to, or any layer clicked, we're just going to go to Save As, and we're going to save this as a PNG. Okay? And what we want to do is we really just want to make a setting on PNG. We want to check a setting really on the PNG settings. So this is my override directory. I've just changed the extension to PNG. I hit save. And if this is a real common dialog to come up, do you just want to merge the visible layers? Sure. In this case, it doesn't matter. And then it brings this up. This is a really important dialog. Okay. We don't really need to worry about all these other things. These settings at default are just fine. The compression level, however, is real important because when you start out, it wants to default to 9 sometimes. Might be a little bit different, but the point is we want it to be 0. So we drag it all the way to 0, we click Save Defaults, and I think we can just cancel out of that. Let's take a look. Let's try that again. Good, yeah, it's stuck. If it doesn't stick, then hit Save. Save off a sacrificial frame, whatever. Then when you come back, just check. Sure, I want to replace it. Yes, I want to merge visible layers. Okay, look, this is what you want. You need to have this 0. Otherwise, you're going to be screwing up your animations and you won't even realize it. They'll just look nowhere near as good as they should. Okay, so we're going to cancel out of that, and we've already saved that off, and the settings have stuck. So now we just need to run the Save All Layers script, and that's going to save each one of these layers as an individual frame or an individual image. So let's come here and go to, oh yeah, of course, Save All Layers. Okay, and it's going to bring up a dialog here, and it's going to say Name Template, Rename, blah, blah, blah. Leave that checked, come in here, and we're just going to call this, we're going to delete the word frame there, we're just going to call it RDSMK for red smoke. We're going to leave the rest of this the same. Then we're going to click OK. And look at that, it happily copies off all of those individual images to, or individual frames to individual files. Now here's a big gotcha. You need to remember that the way this script is hard-coded to work, it saves these frames out to your My Pictures folder. It's just the way it's written. It's hard-coded. If you want to, if you're good with your GIMP foo, you can change the script and have it put it wherever you like. This is the default usage of the script, and it always puts it in your My Pictures folder. So let's click. And sure enough, look at all these individual frames Let's click on one. Okay, you're going to see that green. That's going to be the background. Okay, and it's looking good. It's looking good. I'm using Irfan View to view my images. Okay, so this looks like it's fine. Now let's go ahead and close that up, and now we're going to take these and we're going to string them all together with Glue It. Okay, so I might even just do this and get that ready. Come over to Glue It here, go to Add Files, and then I'm going to get my directory in there. Okay, I'm going to go to Details and change it over to Created. Good. Okay, now I normally would select the 1 to 24 here, but in this case I'm actually going to select it from the bottom up. Reason why is sometimes it'll load it up out of order. I've noticed this with like Winamp too. So if you start at the bottom and then just select all up to the top there, not select all but shift, and then click open, you're going to see that the images are going to load up in perfect order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 24. Okay, so we need to glue this together now. Let's figure out the number of columns. So we got 24 images. We want to make it sort of squarish. Let's say 6 and 6 is 12, 12 and 12 is 24. Okay, so let's say we're going to give it 6 columns. Okay, notice when I clicked here how these dashes appeared. This is just the way the program works. It's not particularly pretty. I don't like it very much, but it's a little thing that happens. Sometimes it causes errors, sometimes it doesn't. Let's just select it all and hit 6 and then click away, and that looks fine. If it screws up, you'll know it, because when you hit Glue It here, it will not produce a normal looking sprite sheet. You can always just start over, not start over, but just go through and re-enter the number until it works. Just a bug in the program. So we hit Glue It, and sure enough, look at that, it works just exactly as we want. 1, 2, 3, perfect. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close this. Now we're going to play it. Okay, notice how it doesn't move around. It's just doing its thing. We can even quicken it up a little bit, and by changing the delay, and there we go. That's much more familiar. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop it. We're going to save it now, and we are going to, this is our full sprite sheet. Okay, we're going to save this in BMP format, because BMP is a lossless format. We could save it again in PNG, but we don't want to do that because we don't know exactly what kind of compression level it might be using. Okay, so I'm going to call this RDSMK. Okay, we hit save, and now this is in our override directory. Okay, and the next step here is we've glued it, we've saved it in BMP. We're going to load it up in GIMP. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and close this, file, close all, discard changes, and then I'm going to drag my sprite sheet right in. Whoops, there you go. I love having lots of windows open. Okay, I'm going to drag my sprite sheet right into GIMP. Okay, and look at that. Look how beautiful that is. Okay, so now all that we need to do is we need to resize it to the closest resolution of these. And so we're just going to go to Image, Scale Image, and right now it's at 768 by 648. Do we want to eat some resolution by lowering it, or do we want to increase the resolution and possibly blur it out a little bit? In this case, I think I'm going to blow it up to 1024 by 1024, and you'll have to uncheck the chain here. Okay, and that will break the link so you can have it like this. We're going to switch the quality or of the interpolation to sync here, and then we're going to scale it. We're scaling it up. We could just as easily scale it down. Okay, but the point is we need to have a nice power of 64 divided by 2 resolution, and again, these are that. It gets so much easier to just show the list of numbers and say, it's got to be one of these. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this off now. Save Red Smoke TGA, and then we're going to hit save. RLE compression, look at that. This is a dialog that comes up for the save TGA. We want to uncheck that. You never want to have RLE compression on. RLE compression is bad. Turn it off. Never on, off, always off. Okay, and then we hit save. Okay, now our sprite sheet is saved off perfectly. It looks beautiful. Okay, we've taken a GIF and we moved it over. Now in the, I'm actually going to split this into a separate tutorial, so there'll be, I guess, 2 more. And in that next one, we're actually going to go through here and we're going to show you how to apply that to an object and then show it in game.